You are listening to The Evolved Masculine. Whether you are wanting more and better sex, more confidence, healthier relationships, or a greater understanding of and deeper connection to your masculinity, this is the podcast for you. I am your host, Destin Garrick. Welcome, everyone. This is Destin Garrick, and you are watching or listening to the Evolved Masculine podcast. My guest today is Ruby Fremon. I have fallen in love with Ruby. I think it's been 2.5 years ago now that we met, and at a shared mentor of ours, Rich Litvin, the co-author of The Prosperous Coach, and all around has done incredible work in simply raising the bar on the level of integrity within the coaching industry and how to build a thriving practice that's really rooted in deep service and not just on pummeling people with ads talking about how amazing your life is. One thing that I love about Ruby is that the way in which I saw that she took these core elements that I discovered through Rich Litvin's way of speaking about coaching, and just it brought it to a new generation, brought it to a new audience, as she has focused so much of her work on the new generation of thought leaders. To put in her language, she's the founder of the Thought Leader Collective. She's the host of Today's Thought Leader, a podcast that's freaking awesome. And I say that because I've been on it twice. She says fuck as much as I do, so that's a big plus. And just all in all, she's an incredible top breakthrough coach, as parts from her professional bio, giving the world a voice, a top breakthrough coach and activation expert for purpose-driven leaders who are ready to bring their big missions into the spotlight. Her no bullshit approach ignites true transformation while flipping fear into actualized ambition and doubt into absolute confidence. Somebody who has the word bullshit or no bullshit in the first couple lines of their bio, yeah, that's a friend of mine. We've come to relate to one another as soul siblings, so to speak. I think that the fact that we both have really intense nightlife, clubbing, etc., party lifestyle pasts that really dove into sort of the dark side of our society, and came out of it and through it bolder, stronger, clearer than ever, allows us both to bring forward a different kind of voice than we generally see in these industries, and a place I think that she and I really connect on. Ruby has been named an inspirational woman by the Huffington Post and an icon of influence at the 2018 New Media Summit. I like that, icon of influence. I can totally see that. Ruby's the visionary behind the annual 3-day transformative leadership event, Amplified Soul Live, which I was blessed to be able to attend and speak on a panel of a couple years ago. So I've really come to deeply appreciate Ruby's voice in the world because she, well, as she says in the bio, has a no bullshit approach. The coaching industry as an industry has a lot of friggin' problems in it, a lot of issues with ethics and integrity, and she really calls people up. Calls people who are stepping into or claiming influencer status or calling themselves wanting to be thought leaders, to really own what that means, and to truly step into true thought leadership and leadership in general. Meaning really be a stand for something, speak unapologetically, forget about the likes and do what is right to your soul, to your being. Stand for something. Does this sound familiar? I would think that it does, because these are things that I talk about to you all quite a bit. And unfortunately, Ruby has also had to face, address, deal with what it's like to be a beautiful, vibrant woman who is in a position of visibility and leadership on the internet. You might already have some idea as to what I mean by that, but you're about to hear a whole lot more.
That was quite the intro. I have to say that was probably my favorite introduction of any podcast that I've ever been on.
Wow,
Thank
that's
you
saying something.
so much.
Why is that? And I'm assuming you've been on dozens, so.
I mean, I've been on way more than dozens, but this was like
Mhm.
so personal and so deep. And I just so appreciate you and your presence and the way in which you show up for your mission. And yet we're definitely soul siblings on so many different levels. And I'm just excited to rock out with you today.
Yeah, well, the way that we approach life and leadership, I've just I feel such a strong sense of commonality with you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many times, like when we were first getting to know one another, uh, I just, I meet people all the time, and it takes it takes a little something extra for somebody to like really land in my field, and for me to want to keep them there. But
Mm-hmm.
every time I would see something of yours pop up on my feed, I mean, I'm very blessed in that my first experience of you was live, was
Mm-hmm.
meeting you in person. Though that was
Yeah.
though our interactions were minimal there. Something I actually want to dive into with you a
Mm-hmm.
little bit here, because I think it's very relevant to the conversation we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have. Um, but then every single thing that I saw you post, it's just like, fuck yeah, this woman doesn't give a shit. I mean, because she really gives a shit, or as I like to say, like, uh, it's that perfect combination of don't give a fuck and really giving a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't give a fuck what other people think or say, and really give a fuck about what you're doing and about this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're a prime example of that. So
Thank you.
I'd like to start off just by hearing a little bit about you. Like, who are you really, and why? Why do you do this work that you do in the world?
There's a lot to unpack there. Who am
For
I
sure.
really? Um, I am a leader, a woman who chooses to stand in her potent truth because my vision outweighs anything else. I lead my life uh, through my vision, through what I see is possible for humanity, for our society, for our collective. Um, and that's how I choose to show up each and every single day. I choose to show up as the fullest expression of my message, of my truth, of my mission, of the work that I do with leaders. And I do so because I value congruency and I value integrity, and above all else, I value authenticity. There was a
Why?
second question. Why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah,
I mean,
why?
I hold those values also, and like I can and look at my history and kind of get a sense as to the reasons why those things are so important. Like I
Yeah.
believe that there's usually some deeper underlying cause behind why somebody takes on a mission so fully as
Yeah.
somebody like yourself does.
So I say that if I were to explain my mission in the simplest terms, I'm here to give the world a voice. And why that's so important for me is because for the majority of my life, I felt like I didn't have a voice.
Ah,
You
now
know,
we're
people,
going somewhere.
right? People, I mean, people when they ask you, "Were you always like this?" Yes and no. I believe that I was born this way, but it was through parenting, through being told what's acceptable, what's not acceptable by my parents, by my religion, by my culture, that I started to diminish myself, diminish my voice, diminish my presence, and on top of that, mask who I was. And so for the majority of my life, I was living it as if I was someone else, as if I was trying to please other people around me, because all I wanted at the end of the day was to feel loved, to feel accepted, to feel like I belong somewhere, just like every other human being on this planet. And when I hit rock bottom in 2012 and began really unpacking this, my stories and these beliefs and this old paradigm, this old way of living, and started creating something new for myself, that's when I realized, like, holy shit, this is what's possible. This is what freedom really feels like. This is what it feels like to be fully expressed. This is what it
Mhm,
feels like to stand in your potent truth. And this is what I want for people. And this is what I want to see out of the leaders in our world
mhm,
today. Whether it's the online influencer slash leader or our politics, like in all facets of leadership, this is what I want to see. I want to see people standing in their fucking truth. I want to see the world feel that freedom, um, feel free enough to express their truth and have the courage to dive deep within themselves to really get to know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so my story is what really drives me, because now I see what's possible. And, um, it felt like I was living in a cage, and now I'm not. And I think most people are living their lives in cages,
Mm-hmm.
and I see better for them.
That's really powerful. And how long have you been liberated from that cage?
The liberation process started in 2012.
Mm.
And I think that maybe 2018-ish was when I really started to feel truly liberated. And prior to
Mm-hmm.
that, it was a practice of like removing pieces of the cage
Mm-hmm.
and testing it out, and also like really activating my voice and understanding who I truly am, so that I could then show up as the fully expressed woman that I am today.
That's great. That's great. I got to say, like, after I asked that question, I actually questioned myself that I don't know if that notion of being liberated can, can never be fully in the past. That one of the reasons why I appreciate you so deeply is that, externally, most people would see me as that liberated voice and all those things that you speak of. But I keep you in my field in part because it you you consistently show me that mirror and get me to continuously look at myself. Where do I still have more to do here? Where are those places where I'm not speaking
Mm-hmm.
up? And the truth is, I'm constantly finding new places. Or I'll also have moments or things that have happened in my life that cause me to just reclose a little bit in some area, or maybe not even notice at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
then later be like, whoa, what's going on here? I'm not in my fullness. I'm not in my deepest expression. I'm not really standing in my truth here. Or I noticed that I'm holding myself back in some way.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and and so, I mean, it's sort of like this notion of the evolved masculine. It's like there's really no there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point that check done.
Right.
I never have to think about this again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no there we are in constant evolution. And
Mm,
it's not that I don't have days where I don't feel free. Like, I definitely have those days. I definitely have
mhm.
interactions. I definitely have experiences. And it's that practice of leaning into that part of me that feels fully expressed. And
Yeah.
it's a daily practice. It's a conscious decision that I make every single day. Like yesterday, I posted, was it yesterday or this week? Earlier this week, I shared something that was a very personal story about how my dad didn't approve of my visibility when I first started coaching.
Mm,
And I hesitated to press send because I knew that my dad's a subscriber. He's on my text message list. He's on my Facebook. He's going to see this. It's not that I was saying anything that it
mhm.
ended on a good note. However, like the subject line in bold at the top, my dad didn't approve my visibility. Like, there was a lot there that we needed to unpack. And
I
so
have a
I
whole
still
chapter in my book about my father.
right. And we
I
still have these
Oof.
hesitations, right? We still have
Yeah.
that. And it's a practice of leaning into ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And also, like, I don't share shit for the sake of hearing my own voice. I share shit that I know can be of service to my community.
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of people that show up in these ways, vulnerable, transparent, but it's really self-fulfilling. It's
Sure.
to fulfill the ego. It's to get the validation for what they're going through, to validate their pain, whatever it is. And you can tell what those posts are, because when you read it, you kind of feel like, oh, like, ugh, I feel like I need to take a shower now, or an Epsom salt bath or something. Maybe sage myself. But you, when we get to that place where we've really made peace with our story, we can share from that place of empowerment, share to
Yeah.
empower, share to serve.
Yeah, I have a tendency to wait when I'm in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of whatever
Yes.
it is. I just feel like, okay, whatever I would be expressing right now, I'd be so like in my process that half an hour after I post it, I might not even think that or believe that anymore. Let, let
Yeah.
me wait until I just moved through this a little bit better, got clearer on this, and then once I've formulated this more clearly I can deliver it in a way that actually holds value for the people who
Oh my God.
are
I
paying
love
attention.
that. And I love that you said that. Like, I think people should rewind and listen to that again because it's so important. Like, uh, when we share from the volcano eruption
Mm,
place, usually we're not sharing it with the right intentions. Like, I will write from that place. Like, I write from a place of passion, but I write in my notes.
mm,
And then I don't write straight on Facebook. I don't write straight on IG. I never write social media posts straight on the social
mm.
media network. I always compile them in notes so I can sit with it. Otherwise it's just like you're kind of uh like throwing up your
Mhm.
emotions all
Well,
over the place.
that's what people are doing left and right on social
Oh my
media.
God,
Twitter's
yeah.
the worst. Uh, but I guess I just, it's sort of like an overall practice of how you are with your mind in general. I was actually thinking about this today, that somewhere along the line, I'm not sure how long ago now, I started this practice probably after I did Vipassana for the first time, the
Mhm.
10-day silent meditation retreat, where I learned to separate my sense of self, my identity, from my thoughts.
Mhm.
And, most of the time. And, and so with that, the the immediate thought that I have, especially if it's provokes any sort of emotional reaction, is not necessarily my truth. It's simply just my immediate thoughts,
Mhm.
and it may be rooted in past wounding, simply old habit patterns.
Mhm.
So if at first it's like sitting with, okay, is this really true? Is this really the truth of who I want to be?
Mhm.
Because I believe that every action we take, every word that we speak, every thought that we really let ourselves think, like let our well, I describe in my book as another brushstroke on the masterpiece that is your life.
Yes.
We are constantly in our act of creation, so take a
Mhm.
more conscious, empowered role in that creation. You have a thought, check it, and then
Mhm.
like, all right, is this where I want to land? No, how do I want to direct this? And so the same thing, if you're just with posting on social media, can be the same way. In fact, if anything, it's a great practice for it because you can write something and then sit with it.
Mhm.
Do I still
Yeah.
feel that way even a minute from now?
Yeah, because sometimes you just need to purge it, right? Like sometimes you
uh,
just, but that doesn't mean you need to press enter.
yeah. Anyway, Ruby, I feel like we could probably speak for many hours straight, and
Yeah.
I know that there's a particular place that caused us to decide to have you on at this time, and probably a conversation that this is the show for you to have this conversation.
Yes. Yes. Because I have not had this conversation anywhere else.
So tell me, what is the big challenge that you've been facing dealing with, particularly with certain kinds of men on being a public figure online and on social media?
It's their commentary, whether it's commenting on my posts or sending me private messages, um, which, range between, just over the line to way over the line harassment, daily, every single day, to the point where I no longer do live videos. And I used to go live almost every single day.
Yeah, I remember. So can you be a little bit more overt, explicit with what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I will get anything from a message with a bunch of heart and kissy emojis to like the eggplant emoji with the squirts to literally like dick pics. And with commentary, I'll also get messages where it's a thread because I don't reply, and it'll be like, "Hey gorgeous, hey, are you there? Hey, another message, you're pretty, you're beautiful. Why aren't you responding? Fuck you then. Die, bitch, die." Like shit like that. Like people go from 0 to like 1,000. And I remember there was one day where when this really started to amplify, and it was when my Facebook page started to grow. And like Facebook actually was promoting my content. And I they were promoting my videos, and I remember looking at my DMs and one day noticing a few of these comments, and I was like, okay, whatever, delete, delete, delete. And then the comments started um, amplifying. There was more and more and more, to the point where my inbox was so full I could scroll for like a minute
Mm-hmm.
and there'd still be so many messages. And I remember this one day going through a bunch of messages and I started crying. And I couldn't stop it. And I felt like really ashamed for crying, because I was like, why am I letting these men like make me feel this way? Like, why am I feeling this way? I'm better than this. Like, I look at what I've built. Like, why the fuck am I feeling crushed because of these comments? And I spoke to my husband. I went to him. I was bawling my eyes out, and I said, you know what? It feels like like my someone's they've just like trampled into my home, and I didn't invite them in, and now I can't get them out. If that's how it feels. And this is not why I use social media. I understand that in using social media, trust me, I understand that in using social media, you open yourself up to everything, right? Unless you have private accounts and all of that. I get that. And um, it sucks, quite honestly, to feel like your space is being invaded in such a disrespectful way, you know? Eh, yeah, the majority of my life as a child, I was bullied for how I looked. I didn't feel pretty. I wasn't pretty. I wasn't considered pretty for the majority of my life. I was bullied for how I looked. Guys used to make fun of me. And then I grew into myself, started gaining confidence. And now here I am, super fucking confident in my own skin, which took a lot of work, only to have like, it feels like this is now working against me. That
Mm-hmm.
fucking sucks. That I
Yes.
even think that. You know what I mean?
I remember in graduate school, so I was probably 23, 24 years old, and getting to know this woman, roughly my same age, who was stunningly attractive. And uh, when we leave for the summer, what have you, and when I see her again the following year, she'd gained at least 30 pounds, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
And as I ultimately dropped in with her more fully, I ended up discovering that it was a defense mechanism. The weight gain was primarily because she wanted the attention to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because the attention that she was getting was not just all positive. It didn't feel like it was feeding her at that point. It felt like it was doing more harm than good. And when she found out if she was gaining the weight, it decreased.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean that you can't still be opened up. I mean, um, women who are quote unquote overweight in various terms can still be harassed,
Mm-hmm.
abused, molested, raped, etc. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter your age, weight, ethnicity, anything. These things, it's an aspect of being a woman in our current world. Um, but in many ways, it speaks of the opposite experience, the same experience of what you're describing. And I remember when she was sharing this with me, it was another layer of those veils lifting from my eyes, of really
Mm-hmm.
understanding some of the things that women deal with and
Yeah.
the
I mean, the fact
impact.
that I
Mhm.
I've made a conscious choice to not go live, which lives were a really great way for me to connect with my audience, um, sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I actually have retracted from doing something that I love to do that actually benefits my mission,
Mhm.
because of the harassment that I receive, whether it's on Instagram or on Facebook if I go live.
So what would happen when you would go live?
So the comments begin like
Mhm.
from the beginning, whether it's like emojis or the eggplant emoji, or people actually commenting, hey sexy, show us your tits, like really disgusting comments. And then other people start piping in, and then they become like this gang. And like, I'm not for that. That. And yes, there's my audience in there too, but I also don't want to subject them to this shit,
Sure.
and we can divert our eyes, just like you were saying to me before this, like, okay, stuff is in the spam folder, don't look at it. Yes, for sure. And I think that there's some great value to sharing and talking about some of that shit, because as a collective, we can work together to prevent this from happening with future generations of men. You know, some of these men, they're maybe they'll never change their ways they're for the rest of their lives. I believe that. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
um and having or spreading awareness that this is happening can help people, whether in conscious parenting or in schools or just in their conversations with other men, um, to understand that this isn't okay. You know, like I worked in nightlife, like I've seen how guys get together and they'll all like become this clan and have really disgusting conversations about a woman, corner her and do all kinds of shit. And I've also seen the men at the nightclubs who will intervene,
Mm-hmm.
and their friends who intervene, right? And so I think that there's an opportunity in having these types of discussions like we are today for men to just expand their awareness. Like, sure, maybe you're a conscious man that's listening. Amazing. I'm assuming you are. That's why you're listening to this. And there are other men that you can impact just by being this, just by sharing what's actually happening. We can, I believe that we can, as a society, begin to shift this pattern.
So I'd like to just break this down a little bit.
Yeah.
For first, the experience that you're having, uh, it sounds like it's a sexual objectification of you,
Yes.
meaning
Yes.
that though you put all of your energy and attention in the particular value that you are delivering, you feel that all of that is by these particular individuals is completely ignored, and all they see is, here's this hot woman, let me, you know.
Literally, like if you look at my YouTube comments, like people will say stupid shit and it's like I answered that in the fucking video. So you're obviously not listening.
Uh,
You know, you're not listening. People discredit who I am and you know what I've learned in my knowledge, which sucks. Like
of course, you can't have anything real, intelligent, or valuable to have to offer. You're a beautiful
no.
woman. That's
No,
your value.
and I
That's your
look younger
value.
than I
That's
am,
it.
and like no, she's not. She has nothing that she can teach me. Like show us your
Mm-hmm.
tits. Like what? Who the fuck are you? It sucks.
So there's a place in this conversation that's sort of the nuance that I like to explore. Right. And I hope that you're willing to go here with me. And of course, you
Always.
can always redirect if as needed. Uh, one of the challenges that can come up whenever these types of things are raised is uh, the language can end up just turning into, don't do that, don't be that.
Mm-hmm.
Just be more careful with your sexuality, like box it in more, shut it down further. You know, there's extremely limited spaces in which you can or be a sexual being.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't tend to believe that that's the valuable conversation to be having. I understand
Mm-hmm.
where it's coming but it's both reactive as well as, I view, really rooted in our puritanical society's roots.
Mm-hmm.
That's sex negative at its core and has distrust of sexuality to begin with. Um, so more like the message that I've tended to bring to men in general is basically a one of a holistic approach,
Mm-hmm.
meaning when you are see the whole of this woman, the you can uh you can recognize her beauty, her sexiness, her body even, and also like see and know this is somebody's daughter, maybe it's a sister, maybe a mother, or will be, or even
Mm-hmm.
grandmother for that matter. She has her hopes and dreams. She has her wounds and pains. She has entire, she has an entire life and incredible range of value. And are you able to be with that whole, inclusive of her sexuality, her beauty, or what have you, but not exclusively that.
Mhm.
And that when you have that recognition, then if you're going to be engaging with her from the attraction, you can do so from the fact that, inclusive of her humanity. So is this engagement actually adding value, or is it taking away? And that
Mhm.
seems to be a big piece of what's missing with these
Mhm.
interactions that you're having, is that these men are lacking any awareness of the impact that it may be having on you.
Mhm. Yeah, and maybe I remember one of my guy friends saying like they're not even in a place to have that awareness. And I fully accept that too, which is why I don't, have conversations with these people. Once in a while I might drop a GIF. Once in a while I might drop a comment that will put them in their place, but also teach a lesson.
Mhm.
Once in a while I will reshare what they're sharing to me to show my audience like this is part of what happens. Um, but at the end of the day, like people are reacting from their own beliefs, their own values, their own wounds, their own stories, their own traumas. Um, and so that's where these reactions are coming from. Like these men have obviously not been taught how to respect or honor women, or have not been taught self-love, or have not been taught, XYZ. There's a
Well, I
million
think
things
it's more than that. I mean, you're speaking of what they're not being taught, but I've dived
and what they
in.
are being taught.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. There is a lot of modeling and a lot of like very direct uh teaching, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
of men to other men, of that type of objectification and aggression. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like, I do believe that there are definitely ways that one can be extremely overt with one's sexuality that come across extraordinarily differently.
Mm-hmm.
And the starting place is having an awareness of this other being that you're interacting with, and
Yeah.
how you are being received, or how you're engaging with her would be would be felt, and how you are seeing her, if you are even seeing her. But it sounds to me that those interactions have nothing to do with you whatsoever.
No, nothing.
You're a two-dimensional caricature in their mind,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just various projections. And then the moment that you're not lining up to a preconceived notion of how you are supposed to be responding, it flips in a moment
Mm-hmm.
from uh, you know raising you up to wanting to tear you down.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do it in ways that belittle me,
Hmm.
that objectify me, that are straight up harassment. I feel grateful to be someone who has the awareness and the growth and the consciousness to understand that they are acting out of their shit and it's not me. But I feel bad for the women that aren't there yet, because this has a detrimental impact. I'm not the only woman who gets these. I literally
No,
just had
not
a
at all.
conversation with someone this week, and she was like, yeah, I don't go live on IG either. She used to go live every single week, and she resorted to no more doing her live show because of the commentary. And it's like, this is just fucking bullshit.
Hmm.
And I don't know. The frustrating thing is I don't know what the solution is. Like part of me just wants to keep fucking showing up anyways, but it is so distracting to see those comments come up on my screen and to tell me just don't look at them. Like it's hard when they're right in
Sure.
front of you. Um,
So this is an aspect when people speak about
yeah,
male privilege. This is a perfect
yeah,
example, because
yeah,
this is these notions of privilege, whatever, are often a politicized and b like not always understood very well. So I'm just going to take a
right.
moment, because this is a perfect example. Um, this is an aspect of my quote unquote male privilege, in that I just don't have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as I'm growing my brand, as I'm figuring out my voice, I'm not running into this obstacle. The privilege is in that if we're not having this conversation, or the various other people that I've had, women who I've had various conversations with, I wouldn't need to know that it exists because
Mhm.
it doesn't touch me. That's the privilege. This is the aspect of how those with the privilege often do not see the privilege, because my sense of my world is my normal.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, the way that you have to move through life is touched completely differently in a way
Mm.
that I otherwise wouldn't have to see.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to name that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Ruby on is for those listening, the women who are listening, to to know you're not alone for whatever degree of things that you have to deal with, and men to just get an insight into one flavor of the obstacles that are often not spoken about, and that most men don't really ever have to deal with. And don't get me wrong, like, I have it's not that I've never ever had any of those types of comments thrown my way. I
Mhm.
have, but it's at like 1/100th the amount,
Right.
which mostly makes it like, all right, like, maybe, like, it's not a big deal at that level.
Yeah.
It's when it seems nonstop. You speak of it every day, and how you can't
Yeah.
go live without this
Right.
happening.
I have to change my I choose to change my behavior
Yeah.
because of it. I'm not going to say I have to, because I don't have to, but I choose to,
Hmm.
change my behavior because of this, to avoid these types of interaction. I mean, a recent thing that I just shifted. So I work with men and women. I have the most incredible men in my programs. I'm so blessed to work with some incredible men one-on-one, and I love working with men. And now, when I, for example, boost a post or advertise on either Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, I now have to filter my audience to women only. Because when there are men, even if I filter it down to what they like and their interests, like get it super defined,
Hmm.
there's still a barrage of commentary that I don't want,
Hmm.
and like then that's time that from my team to have to go in and like delete these obscene comments like that. I don't want to deal with that shit.
Yeah. I want to
uh
speak to another piece of it, so I
yeah.
think is worth speaking to. That so for those who are audio only and haven't yet clicked on one of these links, please go into the show notes and do so, and check out Ruby Fremon. You'll quickly notice Ruby is an extremely attractive woman.
Thank you.
And oh, I noticed from the first time I saw you. And I'm not the only one. And that's there are a number of men who whose experience of uh, conventionally attractive women feels to them like this incredible power dynamic that they're never going to equalize.
Hmm.
There's a sense that she is up here somewhere, and uh, you're untouchable, uh, and that the you are simply something that they can fantasize about, but and may have wanted or desired, or you're emblematic or symbolic of something that they have wanted or desired since they were prepubescent,
Hmm.
and and cannot have. And so with that, uh, some and again, that's a belief system. I actually do not believe that to be true, but that is the belief system there. And so rather than I'll get to the rather than after.
Hmm.
Um, they'll they can revert into a sense of anger and resentment from that feeling of powerlessness, and a
Mm.
feeling of what you have that they cannot have, the feeling of the power that they feel you have over them. And again, you're symbolic of women who I put in the same type of a category. And so it's various forms of lashing out against that feeling of powerlessness.
Mm. Hmm.
So there is another option, and this is what I'm really inviting uh, anyone who's listening to this who has ever felt any relationship to what I just spoke to, or no matter who you are. is instead to allow women who you put in this type of category to inspire you, in inspire that place within you that is yearning to be more and is capable of being more. That the sexy, I really have come to strongly believe that the sexiest thing in the world is self-actualization.
Mm, love that.
And if there is a type of woman that you place on some sort of ideal or pedestal and feel that the current version of you could not have, well, what version of you would have to arise in order to have the type of woman that you really desire?
Mm-hmm.
And allow that to start a fire inside of you, a kick in the ass inside of you, to do that work, to do
Mm-hmm.
deep introspection, to confront the uncomfortable places. And you know what? Doing really intense inner work and that a self-actualization process is not always easy. It's not. It can be extraordinarily uncomfortable, and it can take an enormous amount of energy to do so. And there's massive rewards, including the fact that you become more attractive to a wider set of people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so allow, throughout history, there's we've had a relationship to the notion of like the muse, for example,
Mm-hmm.
which has typically been a feminine in nature,
Mm-hmm.
that which can inspire your genius. Allow that which you are attracted to, drawn to inspire your genius, inspire the best of you to arise out, inspire the protector in you to to come up. Are you going to be that perpetrator, or are you going to be that protector in the face of other in
Mm-hmm.
the face of women?
Yeah, that's really powerful, everything you just shared there. And um, I'm a strong believer that every human being, we get to create a sense of safety within ourselves. That then and only then can we ever feel safety somewhere else.
Mm,
We don't need to rely on others for that. And at the same time, like, how good does it feel to for a female to feel safe around men? Um because the majority of the time I don't,
mhm,
and at that same conference that we met at, um there was one man who started hitting on me from day one and was very relentless. And like, how many times and how many different ways can you say no? And also, I'm married and I don't appreciate this.
mhm,
And then there was like another situation where someone on Rich Littman's team that I actually respected and was learning from at that event, I complimented him because I genuinely meant it. I'm a nice person. I said, "You have a great smile." And his response was like, "Thanks, my wife thinks so too." And immediately I was like, "Ooh, like, did he just think I was hitting on him? Because I wasn't." And it can get so messy. And at the end of the day, it's like what you just said. The idea of having this as an inspiration is beautiful because um, in that you start to look at people from a different lens.
mhm,
To this day, like, have I worked on the feeling of safety around men? Definitely. And it's been like finding that safety within myself and learning how to trust myself. And still, when men make comments, like you made the comment on this podcast just right now about me being attractive,
mhm,
because it's you, I'm cool with it. Like, we have a relationship. You're my brother. Like, it's great. It's safe. It feels good. Um, I feel acknowledged and I feel seen, and I take it as a compliment. But when someone says that to me, that a male says that to me that I don't know, I immediately do not feel safe.
mm,
I don't like that. I don't like that I immediately don't feel safe, because to me, I'm then assuming that this person has ill intentions, right?
mm.
When maybe they're just offering a compliment, like I was to that guy, right? And
So
so,
first of all, I appreciate you being very open about your process within this. I mean, this is your journey, and what you shared around that how it stokes that feeling of lack of safety
mhm,
immediately, or just assuming ulterior motive or intent
yeah,
right away. if I were to be blunt, speaks to past wounding, the ways in
Mm-hmm.
which you have faced those very experiences,
For
likely
sure.
time and time again. And so when you're approached in this way, it triggers these past
Mm-hmm.
experiences. And that's another thing that I think as men, like, we can forget, that it's not just you that that she's experiencing when you are interacting with her. It's every man that she's experienced prior, that ends up affecting the lens through which she's receiving you. And so
Right.
her response to you in the moment might have a little bit to do with you,
Mm-hmm.
and there are all these other pieces going on within. So for you, what I'd love to see with you, Ruby, is to be able to come to that place where you can more easily discern uh, what this person's intent is, when what the energy is behind what they're saying to you. I think the fact that you raised up that how you had the same kind of experience in opposite roles in the same weekend
Mm-hmm.
was likely very useful for you. Very powerful in the
Definitely.
example
And
here.
it's like for me, like even just having this awareness
Hmm.
is powerful in itself, because that shows that I'm changing
Yeah, absolutely.
and shifting. And now when, I encounter things like this, even if it's a comment on my IG or my Facebook, I can really pause. Like I actually take a pause and I
Mhm.
breathe into it. And I ask that question. Do you feel like this is coming from an ill-intended place, or is this actually a compliment? Um, so there's definitely growth, because I realize that a lot of that is my projected pain.
Mhm.
And my message to men too, which I've said this to many of my male friends when they're like, well, how do you like talk to a woman? Like, I feel like I can't talk to a woman. And
Okay,
it's
let's
like,
talk about that.
you have to understand that women, just like men, just like any other human being, come with some wounding and some trauma. And
Mhm.
so their reaction to you might not be because of you.
Yep.
Their reaction to you might be because, they were molested over and over again, or once, or they were raped, or they went through some sort of sexual abuse, or they've been harassed day in and day out. Like, you don't know their story.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I it's like, again, like, I don't know a solution. I know that entering a conversation first with looks, it can sometimes be like dangerous territory, because we don't, as the woman, like our stories and our wounds get triggered, we don't know. But I think the awareness is what matters. If everyone is aware, like
Mhm.
aware of what's happening, of the conversation that's taking place, of what's happening behind the words, of the impact of the words, of the possible stories that these people are carrying, then that can create a a more conducive environment for us to grow together and learn together.
I agree. I think that's why these conversations are so important. I just want to play some devil's advocate here to try to
Sure.
just pull up the things that some men can think sometimes, and give you an opportunity to speak your truth around them.
Hmm.
So then, if come on, I mean, if you don't want all this attention like this, then why do you present yourself the way that you do? Why do you make a point of, like, you know uh looking so good, so to speak,
Mm.
if you don't want male attention like this?
Right. So what comes up there
Mm,
is um like so it's not safe to be me. Like
mhm,
literally you want me to shed the skin that I'm in, like this is who I am, you know? And you're sharing with me that it's then not safe to be me, that I need to be someone else in order to be seen in a different way. That's
mm.
fucked up.
You want to feel free to express yourself, including your physical appearance, however you want to feel your most authentically fully expressed version of yourself, without
Right.
feeling like you have to fear the response from some men.
Right.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
What do you believe that um so let's assume the best intent of particularly those who are in our listening audience,
Mm-hmm.
uh, who are uh, who are trying to figure out, how do I then like engage with a woman who I am attracted to? How do I make that first approach, whether physically or online, in a way that doesn't cause her to just contract immediately or feel like she's now needs to be smaller and less than because of me? I mean, that's not what I want to do, but I also want to be free. I also want to be expressed. I also want to be able to express my desire
Mm-hmm.
and not just feel like, oh, that's not okay. Oh, that's not okay. Okay, I have to change my behavior.
Right. Yeah, that's the $1 million question. Whoever has an answer to that is going to be a fucking billionaire, let me tell you. I mean, even for me, the immediate response is it depends on the woman, because it depends on what they're carrying with them. You know what I mean? Like what are the traumas, what's their story that they're carrying? Because some women are going to be hyper sensitive to it because of their stories. Some women are just going to be sensitive to it. Some women are just going to be plain old like fuck this, I don't want this. Very reactive. Some women love it. Some women um encourage it, want it in. But
So that's
like,
the thing. Like there are some schools of thought, particularly things that come up through different pickup
mm-hmm,
worlds, that it's a numbers game. That you describe this whole range of different women.
mm-hmm,
Well, just as a man, don't worry about those women. Just focus on the women who want it and encourage it. And if you approach 100 of them, one or two of them is going to respond positively. That's your reason for doing it.
right. See, for me, I'll share from my experience. How
Yeah,
about that? Because I'm not going
please.
to speak for all women. For me, I want to feel respected and honored. Um, like I said, I don't have the exact verbiage that you can offer to a woman like me. I really don't, because sometimes it depends on the day. Maybe I'm PMSing and I'm extra emotional. I don't know. Um, but I know from experience, um, especially like in the last few years, as I've started to expand my um, friendships with men, and now have like really great friendships with like soul siblings who are men. Never had this before. um they got in, per se, by really expressing um respect, um and a genuine interest in the totality of who I am. Yeah. Like,
No,
and
I think that
that
that's well said. I want to
yeah,
explore this a little bit further. I feel that
for
this
sure.
conversation that we're having is very valuable.
Definitely.
Um, Part of what you describe, though, are the your closest male friends
Conscious men.
and conscious men who you have close friendship with.
Yes.
And I understand that it's a little bit of a different situation now because you've been married for a few years now,
Yeah, 6 years.
and 6 years, and you're not on the market, so to speak. But one of the big challenges that particularly single men often end up dealing with is that they're trying to engage with this woman that they're attracted to, not because they're trying to figure out how to be in her close friendship
Mm-hmm.
circle,
Yeah,
but because there
for
there
sure.
is a real attraction there.
Yeah,
And so the means by which to uh, connect from that place of attraction are not going to necessarily be the same as those means of connection to become best buds.
for sure. Yeah. And I mean, in that circumstance too, again, it depends on the woman and where she's at in her own healing journey. And two, um, I think anytime you can express a genuine respect and interest in the totality of that woman, um, that is a step in the right direction. But again, like, the woman can be in a different place in her journey. She might not have worked through her traumas, or if she has, that will be more well received, right? Someone who
Mhm.
actually shows up with that respect and a genuine interest in who she is And I keep saying the totality of who she is, not just her looks, but her intelligence, her presence, her energy, how she shows up, all of that.
Well, that's the thing, that the women who most closely fit our society's conventional notions of beauty are the ones who have already been told that they're beautiful, sexy, attractive, countless times. So by making that your lead in, you're just automatically placed in that same category as that endless stream of other men who say the same thing to her. And that's where she is going to most likely react from. And so my general thought or approach on this, again, now I'm married 2.5 years, and I'm further away from when this was a very regular part of my life. But I believe that you do not have to hide your attraction. And that's a split that I've often seen with men. Either they seem to be oblivious to the totality of her and are just trying to figure out, how do I get into her pussy?
Right.
Or he's so afraid of being seen as that guy that instead he just suppresses or buries his sexuality or his attraction and just tries to nice her to death.
Right. And don't do that either, right? Like women who have done the work appreciate when there's no, what's the word? Like when there's no posturing, I guess. You know, I mean, yes, don't lead with you're sexy, you're beautiful. And I don't think you have to hide how you're feeling. I think that that's appreciated by women, you know, like me, who are confident in their own skin and who have done the work. At the end of the day, wouldn't it be great if we could all just show up and fucking be us, you know? But right now we're just navigating how to be around each other. It's a great time, actually, where we're at, right? Because 10 years ago, this was a different story. Now everything's come to the surface. Now we're working through things. Now people are talking about consciousness and conscious conversations and heightening their awareness. And it's great. We're able to really, we're starting to tap into how we're all feeling and expanding our awareness around like just what's in front of us, but there's also a story behind it. So it's a great time for us to dive into these types of conversations because we are learning and we are eager to learn. So, you know, to the men listening, sometimes it's just going to be that the woman is not in that place. You know, and there's nothing you can do to push her into that place. That's her own fucking journey. And to the women, the same thing. Sometimes the men are just not in that place in their journey and we can't do anything to push it. But all we can do is work on ourselves as individuals. That's what we can do.
I'm a big fan always of working on self. So
yeah.
What comes up for me as you describe this is when, as a man, when you're approaching a woman that you are attracted to and you want to be able to engage with her in the way that we're trying to point to right now through our conversation, Ruby, that it's a matter of being, when I spoke of not suppressing your sexuality, but not needing to lead with, you know, you're so hot. I think that a root of it is in two major places. One is where you are internally validated, meaning that you are not looking to her response to validate your worthiness, your enoughness, your how much of a man, a real man you are. You don't need her to validate any aspect of your existence. You know who you are. You know your value. Period.
Yep.
And two, with with that is where you can be with your sexuality, your sexual energy, uh, meaning if her presence, if in her presence you feel that turn on in your body, so to speak, you don't feel like, okay, there's a tendency to feel like either I'm turned on, I have to do something with this turn on. I have to try to fuck this woman, or I need to go like whack one off, you know? Whack one off, you know what I mean? And uh, or this is not okay, I have to shut this down.
Right.
And there's this third way that I tend to work with my men around, especially with what I call sexual self-mastery, which is learning how to simply be with your turn
Mm-hmm.
on, to feel the sexual energy flowing in your system, even feel appreciative of her for helping activate that within you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not her fault. She's not responsible. It is your sexual energy. Can you be with it? Can you be with the sensation in your system? I like the phrase turn on because it's
Mm-hmm.
like a switch flipping on where suddenly you
Right.
feel more alive, more energy flowing through you, more alert. Like that's incredible. What a gift. Be grateful for it and learn to revel in that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And by simply allowing yourself to feel and be with your turn on, without making her responsible for your turn on, having full respect for her autonomy of her ability to say yes or no
Mm-hmm.
to whatever it is that you're offering and putting forward, allows her to sink into a greater feeling of safety within her own being, to be able to even tell whether she is enjoying your turn on and what, or feeling her own turn on
Mm-hmm.
from your presence or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Well said.
I think about
Yeah.
this sometimes. Yeah. And I practiced it a lot. I mean, you know, it's something that you and I haven't really ever talked to or explored yet. It was that, yeah, a big part of my uh, nightlife world was in my 7-year erotic rock star
Mm-hmm.
journey adventure. And so, I mean, like, those are the games I was trying to figure out. I'm like, okay, uh, I don't like the way that the pickup world teaches these things. That feels dehumanizing and seems to seems to be helping create the very problem that I'm a stand against,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., sexual trauma. Um, but how do I do this? How do I be in like connected to my sexuality, feel empowered in that sexuality, and fucking care,
Yeah.
like care deeply? And I mean, it was years of a lot of testing and trying and listening to feedback and probably making mistakes and
Mm-hmm.
learning from those. And yeah, that's where I've come to these conclusions. But even still, I like to speak them to somebody like yourself, because you are on you're in the female experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do like to hear your reflections as to how does that feel to you? And is there something that you'd like to add? Is there something you disagree with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's important for us as men and women to have these conversations and to continue having these conversations, because this is how we learn and this is how we grow together,
Mm,
right? Like, to all the people who think this is, just the masculine problem, it's not. Like, this is a issue that affects the entire collective, and we get to
mhm.
heal together.
Yeah, I mean, women um, are both finding and creating their safety in new ways,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also, have a different relationship to their sexuality collectively than a generation ago or the generation before that,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly like uh, y- your relationship to your sexuality is likely very different than your grandmother's,
Definitely. I
and
mean, it's like, oh, I think what's in my perspective, what's happening is we're all men and women healing generations of patterns in how we
Mhm,
show up, men and women, right?
mhm,
Like we're deconstructing the old ways of how men and women are meant to show up together and reconstructing it, not quite knowing what that's meant to look like, but we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out. And that's why I keep coming back to the awareness piece. I believe that that's all that's required right now. Like, just be fucking aware, just hone in on your awareness and bring that into every conversation and every interaction. And I believe that even if we do that, like, that will start changing the dynamic immediately, because now we are having conscious conversations versus like conversations that are being led by the subconscious, or by the immediate, like, oh my god, I want to fuck her, or oh my god, I want to fuck him, or whatever that energy is. Like, no, go into it consciously with your awareness, because then and only then are we going to be able to figure out like how we can now communicate with each other and interact with each other. Because right now it's a time of healing. It's a time of healing a lot of wounds, ancestral wounds in our lineage, wounds in our own stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I believe that the more that each of us can own that healing, the more that our own children will have things so much easier.
Yes. I will snap to that.
the work that you do, I'll put it for myself. The work that I do is the work that my daughter probably won't have to do. And the work that I don't do is the work she will have to do.
Right. Yep. It's true.
And so with that, I mean, to me, this is part of my protecting and providing instinct is I want to protect her. I want her to be safe. I want to take care of her in every way that I can. Well, one of the best things that I can do is to show up as the best version of myself as I can, to do to discover, to have a willingness to look at and discover, where am I still, I want to say crassly, kind of fucked up? Where am I still wounded, and having those wounds enact in some way, particularly those that might show up with my wife, her mother, because those are going to be the ones that have the greatest impact, and have the willingness to continuously look at those places within myself, and willingness to do whatever is necessary to address them, to grow, so that also what I'm modeling for her from a young age is that willingness to look within and to do what's necessary to grow and to heal.
Amen. I will snap to that.
I like that. So I guess I'd just like to hear from you once more before we have to start wrapping things up. Like, what would you, if you have a single message to our male listeners, particularly, of what you would most like for them to know or understand or take in from this conversation, what would that be?
That we are not just the package. We are not just what you see physically, and also what you see in our shares. We are so much more than that. We are multifaceted. We come with stories. We come with journeys beneath everything. And just to be aware of that.
And so what do I do with that awareness? What do you recommend for?
Lead with that awareness versus leading through maybe what the immediate gut or penile reaction.
Yeah, I don't think it's the gut that's leading in that moment.
Lead from that place of awareness, like really lead from that place of awareness, and deeply honor the conversations that you're having and the interactions that you're having, because that is felt.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Do you have anything that's new and alive for you that you're excited to share with people you'd like to let our audience know about?
I am really pumped because I'm giving birth to my book this year.
Yes.
So I'm super pumped about that. It's been a journey, as you know. So I'm really excited about that, and cannot wait to release it to the world. Yeah.
Do you have a title yet?
Not one that I can share. However, for those who are interested, I can share a way for you to stay in touch and be amongst the first to know when it's coming out and what the title is.
Yes, please do. And we'll also put it in the show notes.
Cool.
Where should they find you?
So join my text community. All you got to do is text #PotentTruth to 1781-336-0160. And then you can also find me online on social media at I am Ruby on IG, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. And then finally, my website, rubyfremon.com.
Well, there you go. And I do highly encourage you to take inspiration from Ruby. She's incredible and has so much to offer. And
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
if Ruby comes back and tells me, as somebody who is listening to my podcast, sent her an eggplant
pic?
squirt emoji or dick pic, I'm gonna find you.
Yeah. Oh my God. Don't do that.
So thank you again,
you.
Ruby. I honestly, there's so many places I'd love to explore with you. And I know that Ruby just recently also had me on her podcast.
I always forget to mention this. Check out Today's Thought Leader. It's available everywhere you can find a podcast, as well as YouTube. And Destin's been on twice. So you can just search for him under Today's Thought Leader. Our episodes are really fucking good. So listen.
Yeah, and of course, as much as I want you to check out my episode on her show, you could check out any of those episodes. They're all really good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really a pleasure.
Yeah.
And see you all next week on the Evolved Masculine Podcast. Till then. Thank you for listening to the Evolved Masculine Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a comment to help other men discover this show and help the Evolved Masculine movement spread. It really does help. I want you to do more than simply consume content, but rather to embody a new way of being and radically transform your life for the better. Join us in the Evolved Masculine membership community, a brotherhood of men who are committed to being the best men that we can be. Crystallize a vision of your most evolved masculine self and implement the tools to take him out of the idea realm and begin embodying him now. Reprogram your sexuality and deepen your understanding of women and the feminine. Learn more and join us at evolvedmasculine.com/membership. I believe in you.